Hey guys, what's up? I'm Darren Dyke, and welcome to Gizmo Slip, the show where we unbox, review, and drop test the latest in technology. The stuff that survives we give away, the stuff that doesn't we destroy in the most crazy of ways. Today is the Wednesday show, and we will be reviewing the Nokia Lumia 900. So the Lumia 900 has a very unique design. It's definitely outside of the typical approach to super thin, super rounded off designs on a lot of the phones that have come out recently. It's actually got kind of like a flattened off top and bottom, and it has a lot of room from the sides of the actual phone to the sides of the screen itself. So we're actually pretty confident that on a side drop it would be able to take a side or back drop just fine, at least we'd hope. As far as this front side goes, there's really not much protection for that. But, we have seen that video that supposedly it can hammer in nails into wood, so we shall see. The USB is on the top side, which is a little bit weird. Usually it's on the bottom side, so especially when it's plugged in and you're charging it and you're going to grab the phone, I keep grabbing it upside down and figuring out, hey, it's the wrong way here. It's a little weird, but you get used to it. It's not really that big of a deal. The headphone port is also topside. The biggest qualm I had with this device was the power button being in the center as opposed to being closer to one of the top edges. I kept accidentally hitting it over and over again, especially when I was watching movies or if it was up to my head. But that does seem to be a fairly common thing that Nokia is doing with a number of their phones. We'll see if they actually stick with that. The power button is also right next to the volume rocker, and the camera button is in a pretty appropriate place. So when you're holding it up to take your photos, it's a pretty natural spot for it to be. Overall, I give it a 4 out of 5 for its design. It looks a little bit weird, but it is definitely sturdy, and it's definitely something you get used to. My biggest qualm, again, is with that power button. It's just really, really easy to hit. So I'm becoming more and more of a fan of the AMOLED displays. I just love the colors that they produce. The one thing that I would say about this phone is that it does have a fairly low resolution per its screen size. It would be nice if it had something closer to a 720 display or maybe just a little bit below it. But right now, it's at an 800 by 480 pixel resolution, which you can tell when you're starting to do basic internet searching or reading when you're dealing with text. It's not as prevalent when you're doing video. When you're doing video games, it can definitely affect the detail. So overall, we gave the screen quality a 4 out of 5. As far as call quality is concerned, we haven't heard anything bad about it, but we do not have access to the AT&T network at the moment for this phone, so we haven't been able to test it ourselves. We're going to assume a 5 out of 5 because we've not heard anything bad, and generally, most phones are going to be a 5 out of 5. So I'm a little bit torn on the Windows interface by comparison to the Android and iOS interfaces that I've been used to. It has a single page list to start with on the front for all of the applications that you favorited, and you can swipe to the left to reveal all of the rest of the applications that you have available. The upside of this is that it is very simple. It is probably the most simplistic interface of any of the phones out there. The trade-off is that it's not as customizable and not as organizable as when you're using the iOS or Android interfaces. You do not have multiple pages where you can sort by, having one page for games or one page for financial applications or one page for your internet applications. It's just not as powerful. So now what I do like about this is that the buttons for the applications are very large, they're very easy to access, and they also double over as almost like a widget, so they can actually show the time, or they can show the weather, or whatever that application is designed for, so they're interactive. And it is very simple to move the applications around on the screen. Literally all you have to do is hold the button down, and it will easily move up or down on the screen wherever you need it to be. I would give the software interface a 3.5 squibs out of 5. So the Lumia 900 has a 1.4 GHz Qualcomm processor with 512 megabytes of memory, as well as 16 gigabytes of built-in storage. Despite the fact that it's only a single-core processor, it is actually fairly responsive when it comes to just switching between applications and actual operations inside of those applications. So you can be surfing the net and it's not going to be limited by this processor's capabilities, only by your connection. So I give it 4 out of 5 squibs for performance. For gaming, we gave this phone a 3.5 squib rating out of 5, largely because of the low screen resolution and the single-core processor, which is much slower than a lot of its competitors on the Android market. But that's not the main reason that we gave it such a low rating. You see, on the Windows marketplace, it does not have anywhere near as many games available as what you have available on the Android Play Store or the iOS App Store. Which brings us into our next section, applications. You see, the same story can be told of the applications, which can be told of the games. There are just not as many available for Windows as there are for Android or for iOS. You're talking literally 650,000 applications available for the iOS App Store, 600,000 applications available for the Android market, and just barely over 100,000 available for Windows. That said, you will still be able to find most of the applications that you would generally need, at least for a casual user, but there's not the same variety, and you're less likely to find some of the more popular applications that some of your friends might have on the Android or iOS interfaces. Overall, we give it a 3.5 out of 5. So the camera on this phone is an 8 megapixel imager and has 720p video. Honestly, we found it to be fairly average, especially by comparison to cameras like on phones like the S3. So it maintains pretty good detail, but especially in low light, it tends to blur pretty easily. It also has a front side video camera that is good for video chat. It's a 2 megapixel imager and actually performs pretty well. We're definitely satisfied with that much. Overall, we would give this a 3.5 squib rating out of 5 for camera quality. The battery life on the Nokia Lumia 900 is actually pretty decent. It has a milliamp hour capacity of 1830, which is a little bit above average for most phones right now. We expect a casual user to be able to get 1 full day of use out of this, but if you're a fairly heavy user, maybe about 2/3 of a day. Overall, we give this a 4 out of 5 rating for battery life. For the most part, we like this phone. If you like the Windows interface, it is one of the best Windows interface phones available right now. That said, the Windows interface is definitely not for everybody, especially if you like to be very specific with your organization of apps. What I would recommend is going into the store and actually playing around with it for more than just a couple minutes, like actually get to use to the menus and see if it's something that you would actually like to use. Because it is definitely very different from Android or Apple's interfaces. Overall, we give it a 3.9 out of 5 squib rating, keeping in mind that we have not yet drop tested it, so the durability rating has not been included, but we will be drop testing this on Friday, so if you want to be reminded of that, go ahead and subscribe to us here on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
Gizmo Slip.